Hello. Today I'm going to read an excerpt from my first book. It's called The Boy Who Learned His Desk Could Fly, a Boomer Memoir by John Paul Nelson, copyright 2016. And the introduction to the book reads this way. As of as of this writing, I am 67 years old. Like everyone, I've had good years, okay years, and some really bad years. That's sort of the human condition. This is a story about one of my best years. I originally had hopes that the story would be a children's book, but I gave the story to my daughter Amy, who is a mother of two, a very busy working woman, and an English major. She graciously took the time to read an early version and politely informed me that it would not be appropriate for children, primarily because of the image of children playing with matches. I couldn't figure out how to edit that out, so now instead of a children's book, it's a memoir. I left it in the children's voice because that's how I see it, and to change that would be impossible for me. I hope you don't mind. After all, we're all still 8 years old at heart. The events are all true for the most part, and the names of non family members have been changed to protect the innocent, or more importantly, maybe the not so innocent. The house we lived in was at 2910 Stewart Street, McKeesport, PA. That house has been destroyed, taken down, so this is the memory of that house. I think that one of the most important things that we can share with another is time. So I have to give a huge thank you to Amy and my beautiful wife Jenny for their time and feedback, and especially Jenny's editing. That being said, thank you for spending time with me, and I hope you enjoy the story. It's not very long, but perhaps it will make you smile. Today, my personal philosophy is I'm going to make music. My wife Jenny will probably make music with me, and anyone else who wants to make music with me will be a bonus. So let's get started. The Boy Who Learned His Desk Could Fly. Long ago, in a land not so far away, lived a boy who learned to make his desk fly. His name was Polly, and the land he lived in was very exciting. His land had cowboys and Indians, giants, army men, a ghostly old house where a hermit lived, a dragon named Sparky, a great big car with a ship on it, a beagle named Lady, a huge river valley, a ship stuck on the side of a mountain, a red genie, 3 small drugstores that sold penny candy and kites, lots of interesting neighbors, and bunches of friends. The boy's house was old, but the rooms were very big, with ceilings so high that when flies would land on them, they would disappear. The boy lived in a house with his mother and dad, brothers and sisters, and their uncle Walter. To make life simple, everyone just called Uncle Walter Unc, and he didn't seem to mind. Betty, or she as he called her, Beps, was his favorite sister and just a year younger than the boy. The house was situated in a small valley in the hills near a city that made steel. In this time long ago, the boy had just turned 8 years old, and he would learn 2 important things this year. He would learn to write in cursive, and he would learn to make his desk fly. Both involved the teacher who was considered to be the meanest teacher in the whole wide world, Mrs. Kurtz, but more about that later. The children's house had 4 big rooms, 2 downstairs, and 2 upstairs. There was also a very scary basement with exposed walls and a large coal-burning furnace. In the winter, Dad Nelson banked the furnace by throwing ashes on the burning coals in the late evening. That way, he could start the fire more quickly in the morning. The heat rose from the burning coal, giving off a not so faint burning coal smell, and going up through giant ducts to the upstairs. There, the heat came out large registers and filled the rooms with warmth. Large vents in the ceilings of the first floor allowed the warm air to rise and heat the bedrooms. The vents also made for convenient listening posts where not sleeping children listened to the grown-ups downstairs, and that was very exciting. In the basement, there was also a large wooden workbench with a huge metal vise and a real pinball machine. The pinball machine came from the neighbor across the alley, Pop Thompson, who had a real slot machine in his downstairs. The front of the basement had access to the coal cellar, where Mom Nelson also had shelves of cans of food for the family. Sometimes she would ask the boy to go down into the scary basement to get a can of vegetables off the shelf. The boy didn't really like the basement all that much, so he would bring back 2 cans so he wouldn't have to go back down there anytime soon. He was a very inventive 8-year-old. Since this was long ago, things were different than today. Long ago, the neighbors knew and watched over the children who played on the street, and the rules that were that you could play with your friends, but you had to be home when the street lights came on. If Mom Nelson wanted the boy home, she simply went out into the backyard and called up the hill into the backyards. "Polly, come home." It was as simple as that and pretty effective to boot. Woe be to the young boy who didn't come running when his mom called him home. But the boy was a good boy and always came home when called. The kids up the street. The Palco family from up the street were the boy's friends. Billy and Timmy were brothers. Billy was a year younger than the boy, and Timmy a year younger than him. How they found each other the boy didn't recall, but he would walk up the street, knock on their door, and ask Mrs. Palco if Billy and Timmy could come out to play. They had various activities to fill the time. They played cowboys and Indians, army, looked for pop bottles to trade for cash to spend on candy, built snow forts in the winter for snowball fights, rode sleds, rode old car tires down the rolled old car tires down the alley, and played a game called Giant. The Palco backyard had a pretty good slope, and when they went there, the yard transformed into the face of a giant. The boys roamed to the face, interacting with the friendly giant in various ways, and never got hurt. A lot of their games had as large an imagination component as in Giant. The Army game would include the story that the boy went into the Army, but they let him keep his cowboy guns, of which he was very proud, and with which he was very handy. He could draw as fast as Marshal Dillon, spin those shining Fanner 50 pistols, and drop them back into his genuine fake leather double holsters, just like on TV. Mary was the Palco boy's older sister, and she was the boy's age. She was a pretty girl with dark hair. Mrs. Palco was younger than the boy's mom and liked to draw. Once, when the boy went into their home, she was making charcoal drawings. She drew the lines and smudged them with her finger for shading. After she was done, she coated them with a spray so they were permanent. Mary knew that she wanted to be an artist too when she grew up. But Mrs. Palco had records that she played, and that's how the boy learned about classical music. To him, the sounds of Swan Lake and the Nutcracker certainly were beautiful. The Palcos were Catholic, unlike the boy's family, who were Lutheran. He knew they were Catholic because they ate fish on Fridays and talked about priests and confessions and such. But stuff like that didn't seem to matter among friends. The Palco boys were very fun to be around. They told the boy about exciting movies that they had seen, and that's how he learned about King Kong, Mighty Joe Young, and Godzilla. Walking up to the Palcos was always an experience in itself. The boy had to walk past the spooky old house on the corner where the hermit, Mr. Marley, lived. Nobody ever saw Mr. Marley because the house was surrounded by huge overgrown hedges. But you could definitely see down into the porch, and they all knew he was in there. Besides, sometimes late at night you could hear him sweeping the leaves off of his roof. The house had a gray cast to it due to the lack of paint, and it was a deep, deep well that Billy told the boy was covered by some old rotten wooden planks. If you walked onto the planks, you would fall into the well and never be seen again. Now, doesn't that just send shivers down your spine? The other thing that the boy had to walk by was a huge black and chrome motorcycle. For the boy, this wasn't necessarily as frightening as it was exciting. The motorcycle sat on the street in front of Nancy's house, sort of cattywampus on its side, on its stand. It had big black saddlebags with fringe and big silver studs on the seat. He could smell the oil, leather, and rubber from the tires on a hot day. The boy liked to hear the motorcycle start up and sometimes watched as Nancy's father jumped on the crank starter on the side of the motorcycle. After a loud burst and smoke coming from the gleaming pipes, the bike would settle into a noisy rumble. Then Nancy's father would crank the right handle, grip, and off he would roar. Eddie Williams' father owned the stake bed truck always parked on the street. It was huge and odd because the back had just been a big open bed with what looked like wooden fencing around the sides. Back in a long time ago, Lionel trains were very important. Eddie's father had a big set of Lionel trains that he set up on a big display at Christmas time. The boy had 2 electric trains to play with. One was a very, very old one and could shock him if he wasn't careful. The other was a newer Lionel work train with a steam locomotive that blew smoke and had a crane car to repair wrecks. The boy's family had the trains up at Christmas time too, but just around the Christmas tree, not on a huge platform. Dickie Honer lived up the street at the top of the hill, and his grandmother lived with him. She spoke only Eastern European language of her youth and wore a great babushka, a type of scarf and dark clothing. To the boy, she was very exotic. Most of his relatives were Scandinavian in heritage, and blondes were common. The boy's grandmother spoke a few Swedish words, but for the most part, everyone in the family spoke English. Dickie was a good friend, and he and the boy wrestled in the grass with a lot of energy, having a good time. I'm going to stop now. I hope you've enjoyed the little segment here. I actually have an ulterior motive for doing this today. I would like for you to buy my book. I'll show you the beautiful copy that I made, or the cover for it. Oh, look at that. How fun is that? And again, the name of the book is The Boy Who Learned His Desk Could Fly, a Boomer Memoir. So if you like it, buy it. If you like this video, you can become a subscriber and see more of my videos. I'll be doing the other 2 books that I've written sometime later. And I hope you enjoy your day. It's beautiful here. It's sunshiny. It's Easter 2025, and Ginny and I are about to go up on the lake and take a spin on the lake on our pontoon boat and maybe catch a fish. You never know. So Goodbye. I hope you've enjoyed it. See ya.